Welcome, everybody, to the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly sports talk show, streaming on all your favorite platforms. I'm KGUN9's Jason Barr, along with Pat Paris. Pat, good afternoon. How are you today?
Good. Things are going well, Jason. Busy week. Very
Yeah.
busy week. Yeah.
We're a couple days away from March here, and I think we'll start, before we get to our talk with you about U of A basketball, with this week's poll question. And it is, Arizona men's basketball 0-4 in one-possession games. Just in case you're not sure, one possession means three points or fewer, right? Because a three-pointer can tie it up. And so here are your choices, Pat. Whoops, my phone just dropped. Okay. Choice A, this is troubling come March. Choice 2, let's not overcomplicate things. And choice 3 says, hey, it's not really 0-4 because they won a 3 overtime game. That's a pretty tough game to win. And yeah, just because that ended up being more than 3 points, it took 3 overtimes to win it. Okay. So 1, 2, or 3, which one are you going with?
Yeah, sometimes you look at these and you go, well, I see a little of that one. I see a little of that one. I kind of think let's not overcomplicate things, but I'd like to think that they're trending towards getting this solved. I think that the game against Washington State was just a unique, it's not like a disturbing trend that we're seeing. It's a matchup problem with Washington State. They lost twice to them by one possession, right? And so I think that you've got to fix this, Jason. But I'm not gonna say this is the end of it. They can't do anything in March. They've just got to figure out ways to get it done that they didn't. They had a 3-point lead in that game late, right after Caleb Love hit the layup and hit the free throw for the and one. They couldn't hold on.
Yeah, as Tommy Lloyd said, you got to get the rebound or you
That's
can't.
it. They get that rebound.
It's a closeout foul on a 3-point play.
Yeah, you can't foul them there either. Yeah,
Johnson had it, and his foul really didn't affect the shot. It was after the shot.
Way after the shot.
I'm going with choice 3. They did win a 3 overtime game. That makes them 1-4 in one possession games. That's not great, but full body of work. I'm not as concerned about that as I am maybe concerned about some 3-point defense I saw earlier in the year, or something being up with Kylan Boswell, which definitely was a big takeaway of Thursday's game that they lost to Washington State. That Tommy Lloyd kind of did get into Kylan Boswell a little bit, and he talked about it on Sports Center last night. In case anybody saw on ESPN, Kylan Boswell just lost focus, and it looked like a 9-0 run, I think, for Washington. Talking about Saturday's game now that they won, but definitely he was in Kylan Boswell, who didn't have a good look, didn't look at Tommy Lloyd right away, but then afterwards, things seemed to be okay.
Yeah, and he said last night on Sports Center, I think he said.
By the way, Pat, before you start, people can vote on kgun9.com/poll.
Okay, or just scan the QR code. Scan the QR code that'll be up for the week. He said on Sports Center last night that it was basically water under the bridge because Kylan Boswell texted him that night and apologized. And he said, you don't have to apologize. There's nothing to apologize for. It's I love you. And that's just the heat of the moment kind of thing. We're just trying to get you better, and we know you can be better. And he can be better, Jason. And if you're worried about anything come March, it's guys like Boswell who you need to see have that consistency that we saw the first month of the season, where we thought he had already really turned the corner and become a great player. He still can be. He shows flashes of it. There's just not the consistency. So those are the kinds of things that make you question whether or not this team can get past some of those hurdles that you face when you come to the NCAA tournament, the Princetons and the Houstons that you're going to have to beat. You've got to find ways for guys like Kylan Boswell to really step up and not have those just unexpected, unexplainable moments where a series of plays happen and he's just kind of the cause and the reason why things didn't go well.
Yeah, we're taking a look at the game melt of Washington State and Tommy Lloyd, who was coaching in his first game since his contract extension, through the 28-29 season. Tommy Lloyd saying that he's still going to eat the same microwave dinner that he ate before the contract extension. I believe his daughter is into horses, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe that'll help. That'll help that way. But yeah, I think Arizona comes off the number one line. After that loss, you've now lost 2 games to the only other 2-bid team in the conference, right? Colorado, I think, is on the bubble. So you got Arizona, you got Washington State, 2 ranked teams. But right now, I think they might Pac-12, depending upon how Colorado does the rest of the way, is going to be a 2-bid league. I think Arizona comes off the 1 seed, right? They're not going to be,
I don't know, Jason. I don't know. Since the committee started
They
sending
got 6 losses, Pat.
Yeah, but Joe Lunardi still has them the 1 in the West. They're still number 4 in the net ranking, number 4 in Ken
If
Palm.
they went out the rest of the way, sure.
Yes,
Especially if they were able to avenge one of these 2 losses to Washington State,
and they
if
and
the
they
2
might
teams
when
do
we
play in
get
the
to the
Pac-12
Pac-12. Yeah,
championship.
yeah.
Washington
Now,
State was so pumped from beating Arizona,
yeah,
they went to Tempe and laid an egg against
yeah,
ASU,
they did.
right?
They were
So
terrible.
Washington State could get upset in the Pac-12 tournament, and Arizona doesn't get a chance to avenge that loss.
True.
Arizona wants a chance to avenge that loss in the Pac-12 championship game.
I would want to, because
And if they win that, they deserve a 1 seed.
as I mentioned, maybe they don't match up all that great against Washington State. That they slow them down, and it becomes uncomfortable to watch sometimes.
But you got to win those games. That was the issue
I'm
2
getting
years
to
ago
that. I'm
against
getting to that.
Houston. You've got teams are going to slow them down in the tournament. You don't think a team's going to look at the scouting report, Pat, and says, "How do we beat Arizona? Let's slow them down like Washington State did."
But there are only a handful of teams that can do that. 2 years ago, it was Houston that did it in the NCAA tournament in the Sweet 16. Last year, it was Princeton. Now, those are big. You got to figure out a way. This year, we thought they're bringing in a little bit more toughness. They've got a lot of senior leadership. You see Caleb Love there, guys that have been to the tournament. Even Pelle Larson's been to the tournament a couple of years in a row now. They should be able to figure this out.
Yes, because you're not going 4 games, meaning the first 2 rounds, the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. You're not going 4 games without a team not being able to slow them down. We saw that against Colorado, because Colorado can't slow them down, so they blew Colorado out of the gym twice.
Right.
But you're not going 4 games in the first 4 rounds of the NCAA tournament without a team trying to slow Arizona down.
And Washington State's unique because they play them a little differently defensively, and they've got to figure that out if they meet up with them again. And each team is going to try to figure out, can we play that style to slow them down? It's not the teams that all of a sudden say, "Oh, we've got to play this way to beat Arizona." It's the teams that already play that way. The Houstons and the Princetons and the Washington States that know how to play that way because they are playing that way. And they're going to run into this next year, Jason, because you've got Houston and you've got Iowa State. Those are the 2 top 10 teams that Arizona will be in the top 10 likely with, as they always are, that love to play that way. And they make you grind it out, and they make you take tough shots. They've got to figure out a way to win ugly. They've got to figure out a way. And Tommy Lloyd, he seemed pretty much, that they're not worried about it, but they know they have to change things around. They just have to find a way, Jason. And once they do, I think that 0-4 in 1 possession games, I think that all turns the other way. But you got to figure it out, and you hope they don't run out of time.
That Love fumbling out of bounds there was a harbinger of one of the final series when he slipped and traveled. And it was interesting, what Tommy Lloyd says, in basketball, you've got to have agility and speed and all these other good things, but you got to have balance as well. And he didn't have balance in that game. Now, Caleb Love came back, and he had a good game of 28 points against Washington and got, I believe, 2,500 for his career. Is that it?
2,000, I thought it was. Maybe
was
it's
2,000 or 20. Okay, yeah, 2,000. I'm sorry, 2,000. Okay, 2,000 points for his career. Something a lot of people can't do, especially if they're only playing 4 years. So that was a heck of an accomplishment for Caleb Love.
It is.
To me, he's not the Pac-12 Player of the Year if Washington State ends up winning the conference.
Well,
it's going to go to one of those 2.
Arizona has to win out. Arizona has to win out, and Caleb Love's that sweat up game like he had against Washington, not like the end of the Washington State game. But don't forget, if it's not his 3-point play, they don't even have the lead in that game late either. So he did some good things, and he had some unfortunate things go wrong.
I thought Keyshawn had a tough game defensively against Jones, 13,
really
13
tough.
on Washington State. And I think you got to give it to one of the Cougar star players, that Pac-12 Player of the Year, if they go on to win the conference. So there's still
right now, Arizona has the, they hold their fate in their own hands. Arizona wins out, they'll win the conference. So
yeah. Difference. We got a comment here. Jason Barr, Pat Paris on the Huddle. We got somebody saying difference is that coaches in the NCAA tournament haven't played against Tommy 7 times. Yeah, I don't know. I'm missing what do you think Palmer's talking about here?
Difference is the coaches in the NCAA tournament haven't played against Tommy 7 times. Maybe I don't know. Is he trying to say that it helps out Arizona playing teams for the first time They don't know Tommy Lloyd and how they play. I don't
I
know.
don't know. I mean, I think of it the other way. I mean, uh, uh, you know, they lost to a couple teams in Princeton, Houston that they haven't played. So
Yeah, but
I
as
don't
I
think it's a
said,
I don't think
it
it's an advantage to have not played them
it
before.
it
I'm not
it
sure.
really comes down. No, the advantage
I like
goes
the
to
skiing picture, but I'm not sure about the comment here. Okay, here we go. Pac-12 teams got the scout and game plan against Arizona 6 times. Yeah, but they're running through the Pac-12. It's
yeah.
the non-Pac-12 teams that they're having the problems with,
Well,
Palmer.
except for Washington State this year, but yes, I think, and I get.
Where's the skiing picture, by the way? Type that as your next.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say this. I understand what he's trying to say in the sense that you're playing every 3 days. In the NCAA tournament, you're playing 2 games in 3 days, and you don't have a lot of time to prepare. It still gets back to my point before. If you're the kind of team like a Houston or a Princeton that plays such tough defense every game all season long, that's a tough matchup for Arizona. Washington State falls into that category. When it's not a team like that who suddenly says, well, we got to try to slow it down, they have no luck slowing down Arizona. And we've seen that. I mean, look, Arizona scores 105 points routinely, or over 100 points routinely on teams that aren't very good. And you don't think they're trying to slow them down? It doesn't work. That's got to be your MO. If your MO is that way, then Arizona's going to have a tough matchup until they prove otherwise.
All right, let's take a look at again at our poll question before we move on to our next topic here. And that is, you can vote to 1, 2, or 3. Arizona men's basketball 0-4 in one possession games. Do you think this is troubling come March? Do you not want to overcomplicate things? Or as I say, hey, they did win a 3 overtime game. Before we go on to the next topic, let's actually look at last week's poll and give you the results of that. Arizona is a projected number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Thoughts? They were projected number 1. Now it might be 1 or 2. Tommy Lloyd is crushing it. It hasn't helped in past tournaments. I'm just glad they beat ASU. That one that got 55%. Okay.
Proving, by the way, Jason, if you just put ASU in there, people are going to vote.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's it. I think that's why I did that too.
Yeah.
I make the poll questions. Okay, let's talk a little bit here about Arizona women's basketball, because a couple interesting things happened in the past week. For one, they've won that's Jada Williams, by the way, who had a breakout weekend.
What a great game she had! Yeah,
freshman of the week. They've won 4 straight, which is the longest winning streak in the Pac-12. That includes that win at, I believe, number 4 Stanford. They hadn't won in Palo Alto, I think, in something like 20 years. Okay, and then their leading scorer is no longer on the team. Kaylin Gilbert. Now, they won these 4 games without Kaylin Gilbert. Kaylin Gilbert is, I think, good pals with Maya Nagy, who quit the team earlier this year. Apparently, there are some issues with Kaylin Gilbert not running the sets correctly, not playing defense hard enough, and they go to Stanford and Cal with 7 players, and they've now won 4 straight games with I believe 7 players. Gilbert didn't make the trip; she's now off the team, and they have a walk-on who's now on the team. But my understanding, this walk-on by the name of Brooklyn Rhodes is not a typical walk-on. Apparently, she's got a lot of very good basketball experience. That's what's going on with Arizona women's basketball, Pat.
It's not the ideal situation for Adia Barnes as far as numbers go, but I think you and I both agree getting to play some of these younger players like Jada is big, and it's paying big dividends. It's taken a little while. She's had to kind of weed through the roster and maybe take some minutes away, and some players don't like to have their minutes taken away, and now they're not playing or they're not even there. But I think finally, for the first time in a couple of years, you feel kind of good about where this team is headed and the nucleus of what they've got. They can compete, Jason. They just proved that.
I think Adia's got to coach a tough-nosed defensive type of team with players who just don't want to, aren't doing their own thing. Yep. And, you can say, well, what about Ari McDonald? Ari McDonald was one of the best defensive player in the country, right? So,
right.
But you can't, because she took a lot of shots, and was what I'm saying about Ari McDonald. But they needed her to take the shots, and she was the best defensive player on the team as well. And obviously a great attitude and all that, did everything asked of her. So, we're not behind the scenes. We don't know the issues. There's definitely been a mass exodus of players. The team is still on the outside looking in as far as the NCAA tournament. But they've got to be playing with a lot of confidence right now, because if you can beat Stanford on the road, you'd like to think you can beat anybody.
Yeah, exactly. And Esmery Martinez gets the AP Player of the Week for that great weekend trip to the Bay Area and the wins over Stanford and Cal. That's a nice feather in the cap. I I really do think they've turned the corner. I really do think that this team is playing its best basketball in the last couple of years suddenly. And sometimes, Jason, that you say 7 players. I think they got one player that they signed kind of as the walk on, as the tryout with the tryout. So they've got at least 8 that they can dress if they want to. I think
because you can't have 6. You forfeit games if you have
right.
6.
So
So if
yeah,
you're at 7, you're in deep trouble because one player gets hurt, you're toast. So you get that 8th gives them a little bit of a cushion.
Right. But it really does. It's a bonding thing, and it's an us against the world kind of thing. And maybe that was maybe that was what it took for this team to kind of come together and say, you know what, we're not going to take it. We're not going to just quit. We're not going to roll over. It's us, and we're good, and we're going to show everybody we're good.
Yeah. All right. So Arizona women's basketball has won 4 in a row. And then the other big topic of the week, Pat, I would say is a topic that's come up several times, and that's this court storming. And the issue is we all don't like it. And don't think your school is holier than thou, especially Arizona fans, because guess what? Yeah, you're not going to storm the court because you're expected to win at McKell Center, but you stormed the football field, Arizona Stadium, when you beat Cal for the only win in 2021. So don't think Arizona fans aren't going to storm. This is anybody here. Your school's no better than anyone else. Okay. The issue is if you're against court storming, I think 98% of people are against court storming because you can hurt a player, and the Duke player, Filipowski, got hurt. Okay. With somebody else, Caitlin Clark almost got hurt. There's been some issues. The issue, Pat, is you got to have an answer for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you can't, I don't know, can you stop 2,000 people from storming the court? Can you arrest 2,000 people? You're not going to have a team forfeit a game they just won. What is the answer to it? And somebody's got to come up with a good answer. I haven't been able to come up with an answer for it. I'm curious if you have any thoughts or any ideas on what your thoughts are on court storming.
Well, my first thought is act like you've been there before, but I know what you're talking about. Sometimes,
not in the exuberance of things, fans with
especially
a couple of brewskis in them, and they beat the 3rd-ranked team, and their team's had a social year. They're going to go nuts.
Well, the other night, though, the Georgia Tech beating Duke, and Duke's barely in the top 10. Like Duke, this isn't the greatest Duke team in the world, but it's Duke, so Georgia Tech goes crazy, and unfortunately,
I think there's some fans who just want that storming experience, right? And they're looking
no
for
question.
a way to do it once in their collegiate, once in their college life, when it's the time to let loose,
Yeah, and really, social media is a big influence in this because everybody runs out like this, Jason. They're running out like this, and they're running out on the court. I mean, look at this picture. There's people holding their phones up. They want to show that they were the ones that went out and led the charge to get out on the court to celebrate that big win. I really, a lot of schools are trying different things. I've seen the rope come stringing out. I don't know if you've seen that before. I've seen it in the Big 12 the last couple of weeks because there's so many upsets going on in the Big 12. Are they really upsets? I don't know. There's a lot of great teams, but they run out with about 20 security people and a rope, and they try to get that last 10 feet by the scores table in the bench areas kind of cordoned off so that none of the students can get there. Go to the middle of the court, but don't come to that side. It seems to work sort of. The big issue is, don't you understand your own student base? Like if you're playing Duke and you're at home and you knock off Duke, chances are they're going to run on the court, right? They were so ill prepared with Georgia Tech that Filipowski gets hurt for Duke. Shouldn't have happened. We saw Caitlin Clark get hurt, not seriously, but earlier in the season as well when Iowa got knocked off. I think there has to be a better plan. That's what I don't understand is that.
Well, that's the argument. You got to plan for parking. You got to plan for concessions.
That's it. You got to plan to keep people from coming out on the court during the game, right? You got security people there that are watching. If somebody steps out on the court, you're going to go grab them. So you got to just kind of up the security level. I've heard it. I think Jay Billis mentioned something about, well, you immediately stop everybody and you give them citations. And then Richard Jefferson, the former Wildcat on the ESPN, NBA on ESPN, is like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, Jay Billis. And everybody loves Jay Billis, but how's that going to work? That's not going to stop anybody. So I think Richard Jefferson has it right. It's part of the experience. I think it's part of the experience. Personally, I wouldn't do it.
I don't think it's part of the experience. I don't think that's right at all.
I think it
It's
is
going to
for the.
take
I
somebody
think it
getting
is for the
killed or
students.
seriously hurt before they change something.
Well, it's part of the experience if it's done right, and you can have some security to slow things down and keep it a little bit in order. I'm just saying it's going to happen, and you can try to find. Some of the conferences are fining schools $100,000. I think LSU had to pay $100,000 for.
So money talks, and then what you have is okay, $100,000 is more than 100 security people who are going to have to put right around
that's what you have to decide. That's what you have to decide. Now, for some of these schools, it's like, oh well, we'll just pay it, and you pay it. By the way, in the SEC, you pay it to the team that lost on the road. You pay it directly to them. It doesn't go into any fund or the conference. You pay it to that other school for their inconvenience, I guess.
All right, let's finish it up here with the live results from our poll. And that is Arizona 0-4 in one possession games. Let's see how we got some good amount of votes here so far. Let's not overcomplicate things. Overwhelmingly is ahead of this is trouble.
That was my pick.
They did win a 3-OT. That's what I picked. They did win a 3-OT, 3 overtime game. That came in third. I'm surprised. But yeah, let's not overcomplicate things.
There are some that are concerned, and it is troubling, but I don't think it's to the point where I'm giving up on this team just yet. Every team is flawed, and I think that's what gives you hope is that there's no perfect team out there. UConn's lost now. Purdue has lost a few games. Houston's lost a couple games. It's just hard, Jason. It's difficult, and sometimes you stumble. And these kids are kids, and they make mistakes, and things don't go their way.
All right, for Pat Paris, I'm Jason Barr. This has been the Huddle, and that poll is going to be up for a week. So feel free to vote, and we'll show the final results next week. This has been the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. Arizona at ASU tomorrow night. I think it's going to be a closer game, certainly than 45
points.
I think we both think Arizona will win a close game for that. At least I do. Anyway, for Pat, I'm Jason. We'll see you right back here same time next week.